calling all instructional coaches, curriculum specialists, teachers on special assignment, or whatever they call you. I'm Matteo Souza.
And I'm Katie Ritter. As instructional coaches, we are often responsible for our own professional learning and can sometimes feel pretty isolated in our role.
That's why we're here, bridging the gap with a wealth of tips, tricks, and building a community of coaches.
So hit the restart button with us.
Recharge your coaching batteries.
And hopefully you'll leave feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
We want to welcome everyone back to the Restart Recharge podcast for coaches who want to level up their practice. And today we are joined by Maureen Lamb, a true innovator who blends the ancient world with the future of learning. As an award-winning educator, Google certified educator, and AI expert, Maureen is here to show us how to use technology not just as a tool, but as a path to more impactful coaching. So we're ready to rethink our approach and see what she has to offer for us today. So thank you and welcome to the podcast. We'd love for you to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself for those that are listening in today.
Thank you so much. It was so awesome to meet you at ISTE, and so I'm very excited to be here. My name is Maureen Lamb. I am a Latin teacher, a language department chair, and an AI task force chair at Miss Porter School in Farmington, Connecticut. I absolutely love working at a small girls' school. It's the best. I've been teaching, oh my gosh, it's going to be the start of year 19 this year for me. I have
Yay, nice job.
so much fun. I've worn a lot of hats in my 18 years of education. I've been a dean of faculty. I've been a language department chair, a dean of academic technology, a coordinator of academic technology, a dean of innovative pedagogy. So I've done a lot of different things. I think that I always like to learn and grow as a teacher. I feel like if I ever come into the school year being like, yeah, I really got this, then it's time to quit because I want to keep growing and keep doing better as a teacher. I think we all feel like that. There's always things that we can improve upon and do better for our students. I like to call myself an AI enthusiast. I'm not sure I'm quite an expert because I feel like for an expert, you have to spend 10,000 hours on it. And I don't think it's been around for me to have spent 10,000 hours on it. So I'm thinking I'm an enthusiast. And I know there's a lot of things right now. You should avoid it. It's scary. There's a lot of things wrong with it. But it's a transformational technology. It's not going anywhere. So I think what we need to do is learn how to leverage our use of AI to make it effective and to make it so that we can use it in a way that's ethical and not to like hamper our creativity at all. I feel like we need to harness the power of AI to help us take our ideas and make them even better, not to think for us. So that's a little bit about me and my background. I got my first job ever coding websites back in, 1999 for my dad's company. And so I was using old school code to code websites for towns in the state of Massachusetts. And it was wild to learn about that and figure out how everything worked. And it actually really kind of led into part of my Latin learning because Latin's very similar in that you have to problem solve and figure out how things go together. I think that's the technology in Latin has never seemed as two disparate things for me.
That's super interesting. I would have not made that connection, but also I don't have formal training in Latin. And I love that part about your bio. It was about pairing the ancient world with with the future and bringing it to life.
Yes.
And I love that. I'm like, that is the best line of a bio I think I've ever heard. And I guess it comes from the Latin, right? Pairing it with your passion for technology and AI. So Maureen, we're super glad to have you here. I'm going to kick us off and dive in. You just gave us a little taste of that, but we were joking before we started that, if we asked you, have you done insert thing in education, the answer would be yes, because you've got a lot of experience doing a lot of things with that unique background, right? I mean, so impressive. You've got, like you just said, the Latin and world languages, your passion for technology and AI. We were talking before how you've been in so many different roles from teacher to technology coordinator and trainer for both students and teachers. You've been most recently serving on an AI task force. So you've got a lot of perspective that you are bringing to the world of education. And love hearing that you're like hungry to not ever reach the finish line there. But talk to us about, this is going to be kind of a big question, but what are maybe some of the most impactful insights you've gained along the way through these various experiences that we could give to our primary audience, which is instructional coaches, all types of coaches? What would you want them to know based on your experience about what's the most impactful way that coaches can support their teachers and their teams around them?
That's such a good question. And I've been doing this for about 15 years. So I can say with all certainty that I've tried and failed a lot of different things.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
I just want to be super honest about that. And so I think the first thing to know when you're doing a training, when you're doing a speech, when you're doing a workshop, know your audience, know the people who are in the
Yeah.
room and what experience they have. Nobody likes being talked down to. Nobody likes being told things they already know. And so if you're doing a training, if you're doing a workshop, it's really important to poll your audience, whether that is you could do the 5 fingers thing. If you know this really well, put up 5 fingers. If not, put up the number of fingers you know this, just so you're not repeating what people already know. And it might be helpful too, before you even do some sort of training, to survey people and see what they want to cover. Because I think that as trainers and as workshop leaders, we're always tailoring what we do to our audience because we want to make sure that they're having an experience that works well for them. And you don't want to be going way over their heads with something if it's something they're not familiar with. And we want to be able to give them appropriate background. So I'd say that's probably the number one thing. And again, I'm saying this from long experience and for having the second thing I would say is being flexible, especially with adult learners. You have to read the room. If people are yawning, if people need a break, give people breaks. Make sure that people have the capacity to understand. If you're taking them to that zone of proximal development, and you're living there the whole time, they're going to be exhausted by the end of your training. So the more you can kind of bring it in, give people breaks, even little chat breaks, so that they're not just, sitting and they're having opportunities to share what they're doing. That's really important. That leads right into my third piece of advice for people leading workshops. It's so funny you're asking me this question too. I just had a conversation with some younger teachers who wanted to get into the coaching mode. And these are the 3 things I told them. So the third thing I would say is to be patient. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the people in the room, and realize you might not get everything done that you're going to want to get done. So give people an opportunity to continue the conversation. There's going to be people who have questions after the fact. There's going to be people who want to maybe brainstorm something after the fact. So give people the capacity to continue the conversation somehow. Don't close the door right after that thing. Make sure they have your email. Make sure maybe there's a discussion thing. A lot of times I put out a Padlet where people can share things back and forth, or maybe a document where people can share, so that they feel like the conversation can keep going. Because learning doesn't just happen in the room where you're giving the workshop. You're hopeful that the tools you're giving people and the content you're giving people is going to continue and the learning process will continue. So give them an opportunity to be able to check in about that. So the 3 things really are tailor it to your audience, be flexible, and make sure that you give the capacity to continue that conversation.
I love those things. Just a couple of quick comments on those. I really love the planting the seed to continue the conversation, right? Because so often our coaches are often put in positions of doing group training, but like the real magic of coaching happens when you're in more of that one-on-one setting. So I love the idea of planting the seed because that's getting right into then having that one-on-one follow-up conversation where like real magic can happen with the brainstorming and ideas and trying it out, like you mentioned. And then I also really appreciate it's hitting like personally home to me on the being flexible with the time, because I've been personally planning a lot of workshops for actual like forward edge employees, and they've been 4-hour workshops in a single time. And I've actually started only planning content for 3.5 hours of the 4 hours so that I can have wiggle room inevitably when things go off the rails. But also, because I always forget to build in break time.
Yeah.
I would always forget to build in break time. And so that 30 minutes for me has been like, I can't forget to build in the break time now. I've like padded it for myself. So when I see that room and that audience, now I can be like, okay, now's a good time for a break. Everybody come back in 10 minutes.
And same here. Like I just finished up some PD with a group of teachers, so that hit home with the flexibility, because you could just tell, being that it was their immediate first day back, and I was
love
doing
that for you.
PD, and I could just see the glaze in the eyes. So I immediately, had to make that pivot, be flexible, read the room, crack a couple jokes, and then essentially just give them some workshop and chat time. Like you said, I feel like that makes such a difference when you're trying to engage and let them know, like, hey, I know you're also an expert in the room. We're together on this. So I love that. I really do. So in addition to that, being that I did meet you at ISTE and I dug into your background of being a Google certified educator, and probably with all the AI that you do interact with or the technology tools that you have engaged with, is there anything that you've seen or that you've used within the past year that could be fundamental or a great way to impact how coaches interact with their teachers? Or like what's something that you've seen within the past year that has been like a game changer in your tool belt?
That's a great question. I think that, as I mentioned, Padlet is amazing as a
Love
tool.
Padlet.
I love it. And it gives people opportunities to share resources and links. And it also has different ways to construct conversations. And so, as a coaching tool, I find it to be incredibly helpful. I also really, this is going to sound so nerdy, but I love the way you can do different topics and line it up.
Yes.
It looks so nice. And so you're like, ooh, I want to go into this topic. So I'm going to go into this kind of like breakout room of Padlet where you can put everything in one topic. It's really helpful. I use it with students, I use it with teachers, and I just find it to be one of the best tools out there. But boy, is it
Yep.
useful. I think that's my favorite tool to use. The other tool I think for coaching or for giving a workshop that would be the most helpful is surveying tools. There's all sorts of
Mhm.
ways you could do this. You could do Mentimeter, you could do Slido, you could do, there's all sorts of things out there right now. Even a Google form you can do for this. But I think it's really important, again, to survey your participants. What do you want to know? What do you want to learn about? What
Mhm.
are the things you're already feeling very confident in? And what are the things you're not so confident in that you need kind of bolstering with? And what are things that you're like, absolutely, let's go over this? And like, no, we're good. We can move on. Information is not something you'll necessarily get when you're first talking about doing a workshop for teachers. I think the more we can connect with the participants beforehand, the better off we're going to be. And so any kind of survey technology really would be helpful for that.
I love that. Like when you're surveying, I feel like for me, sometimes I'm looking at my survey data. I would be interested to see how often you do survey and like taking that. What is your best method of approaching your survey data? Like after a specific result, you're like, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle and or help so and so. I mean,
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think that I have to take a look and see, do they need more support with something, or do they need like an extension? Do they need like a way to do
mm,
this in a hands-on way where I can create something like a protocol or something where they can kind of go through steps to do something? I think it really
okay.
depends on what they need. And so, but it
Yeah.
helps me as someone who's facilitating this to think, okay, they need this going forward. What are the resources and the tools I can give them to help them to go forward? And what are the things that they need that they don't even know yet? So
Yeah.
that's something to kind of
Yeah.
anticipate what are some things they might need. And so these are tools in my toolbox that I kind of keep in my back pocket when I'm doing some sort of presentation, because I'm like, okay, there might be people who kind of want to do a deep dive and they're like, I need more, to give me more afterwards. Or there could be people saying, I just need to practice what we did in this workshop and make sure I have those resources available to everyone at the end of the workshop. So again, it's the same with students too. When you think about it,
Yeah.
students in the classroom, you have some students who at the end of a lesson, they just want to practice stuff. They're like, okay, I just need to feel confident with this and do a little independent work. And you have other who are like, no, I want to like roll with this. I want to go forward with this. And so even when I'm
Mhm.
giving homework in my classroom, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, I have to make sure I have opportunities for practice, but also those extensions. So if we're reading a letter about Mount Vesuvius, they can read an article about the latest archaeology from Mount Vesuvius because they get it and they're good with the grammar, they're good with the vocabulary. They just want to learn more about the culture because that's what it's all about. And so just kind of giving them more of interesting things. When I'm presenting on AI, there are some people who just want, what are the concrete steps I need to go forward? So I've created the clear prompting protocol: clarity, layout, examples, aim, and relevance, so that people can think about protocols in a very simple way. But I also have opportunities for people to kind of do a deep dive and do more with it and give them opportunities for extension. So what are some extra things you can do with AI? What if you've got the basics, what are some more advanced things you can do? And just making sure I have a mix of both.
Yeah. That's great.
I feel like I was just living and breathing where I was going to take the next question when you were talking about the students, because I started getting excited about ancient culture.
Like I want to know more about that.
You've really, I mean, you can just tell just by the passion that you're bringing to this conversation alone. And literally, like I said, to that little snippet when you started talking about working with your students and getting them excited to learn about the culture. So you've obviously mastered this ability to bring, okay, this is how I've always heard of it. And I just realized this could be offensive to a Latin teacher. I've always heard of Latin referred to as like the dead language and like a bunch of dead guys, right?
Mm.
So sometimes it's hard to get our kiddos and our young people excited about that. But you have obviously done it and done a really great job of bringing this to life and connecting it to people and making them feel a type of way about wanting to know more, which is awesome. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit from what you've learned about how to do that and seen the ahas and the sparks with your students. What is something that you have maybe carried into the way that you work with teachers and adults that other coaches could learn from, and how they might be able to carry that same sort of like bringing things to life and passion to things in their coaching work with adult learners?
I think it's all about mindset. And I love what you said about, oh, is that offensive to Latin teachers with dead language? It's absolutely not offensive, but I would go with
Whew.
more of like a zombie.
Don't offend the podcast guests.
Right.
I would say it's more like a zombie language, because I'm actually a very fluent Latin speaker, but there's only like 1,000 of us or so in the world right now. I speak Latin, and I went to Latin speaking camp for 3 summers. Like, that's super
Oh,
nerdy, I
wow.
know.
We listen and we don't judge
Yeah,
here.
we're all nerds, let's be honest.
But I think the real heart of it is all communication. I
Mhm.
think that for me, when I'm teaching my students Latin, I have, why are we learning Latin? Why are we reading all these old dead white guys? It's like, well, actually, I'm teaching 2 classes this year that are all about the women. One's called The Female Gaze, which is all Latin that's written by women. And it
Oh,
is
wow.
so much fun and giving the female perspective. And also the other one I'm teaching is called Damsels in Distress with a question mark, because it's about these like wonderfully empowered, just kind of like awesome women in the ancient world who made their mark. And I would say that for anyone taking Latin and thinking like, oh, we're not going to read anything fun and exciting, like you can read tons of fun and exciting things in Latin.
I want to sign up for that course.
I know.
Holy girl power all the way.
I love that.
It's a girls' school, so it's awesome.
Heck yeah.
It's great. My students are hungry for it. But I would say that I come up against challenges with Latin in terms of people challenging, but why do we even do this? What's the point of reading Latin? Wasn't that something people were doing thousands of years ago? First of all, it was a lingua franca in Europe up until like 1500. So people are communicating. When Prince Arthur and Catherine of Aragon were writing letters, they were writing letters in Latin to each other.
Latin slam.
Like saying, why do we read Shakespeare? He's so old.
Yeah.
Well, that's not why we're reading Shakespeare. We're reading Shakespeare because it speaks to a truth about us as human beings. It's appealing to our deeper humanity, their love, their loss, their anger, their sadness. That is what appeals to us. And that's what you can get out of Latin too. You can see that, wow, 2,000 years ago, this girl breaking up with her boyfriend, that's kind of like what it's like today when you break up with your boyfriend. Or there's a wonderful poem where Picchia writes a poem about her lover forgetting her birthday. I'm like, that is so real, and that is something that I've experienced, and something that, I think people would be a little bit ticked off about. So it's kind of cool. But it's interesting too with technology. I feel like I'm getting same levels of resistance as some people have to Latin about AI. And I think that just like I'm an AI enthusiast, I'm a Latin enthusiast. So thinking about AI, I don't want to think about necessarily, I know that there are negatives. I know there are things that people don't want to do, but I also want to tell them what they can do with it. We can spend all day talking about why we shouldn't do something or we can't do something, but let's talk about what we can do. It doesn't mean we have to do that, but let's kind of reframe the mindset, reframe the attitude. And I think that with coaching, oftentimes you can run against resistance, especially with adults when you're pushing them too hard into something new and unfamiliar territory. New is scary. New can make fear for people. And so the more you can shift the mindset to, this isn't brand new. This is something we've been doing. Hey, you use Siri? Guess what? AI. Use Alexa? AI. You've been using this all along. So thinking about a shift in mindset, how can we leverage this to our advantage in the classroom? How can we leverage this to work for us? not something that is taking over us, but something we can use as a tool. And I think with technology, I've been doing this since 2010. So as a language teacher, coming up against Google Translate, that was huge. People kept saying, this is the end of language learning. Well, guess what? It wasn't, because language learning isn't just about translation. If language learning were just about translation, we'd all be out of a job. Language learning is a rich mosaic of learning. You learn the culture, you learn the history, you learn how people communicate with each other. It is not just translating A to B. There is just so much more to it than that. And I see that too in using technology. There's so many different and nuanced ways we are using technology in our own lives. And so when I run against resistance, which will inevitably happen to technology, I try to leverage what people are already doing with technology and build on those skills that they already have to help them move forward.
Oh my gosh, such a good answer. I'm like, why did I not take more language classes right
I
now?
know. I was like, I'm actually gonna go join her class after
Oh,
this.
I
We'll figure
know,
out how to get in virtually or something like that.
seriously. There's something you said that reminded me. I always love this quote. Jamie Cassip said it, and it has stuck with me in the work that we do supporting change in teacher practice and what we do, and especially what we specialize here is in implementing technology like you do too, Maureen. He said, people aren't afraid of change, they're afraid of pain.
Oh,
People aren't afraid of change, they're afraid of pain. And that's exactly what you just spoke to, is the fear of, what does this mean for me? What do I have to do? Is this more work? Are there going to be negative consequences? So that, I think it's so smart. I love how you said you're reframing the thinking about how to approach it, both with your students and Latin learning, but then also with your adult learners and whatever the topic at hand is that you're supporting them with. So smart.
Yeah, I love that. And in connecting all this, because I didn't realize you taught at an all-girls school, and I feel like that's such an impactful career in general, especially in today's world, and seeing how we can kind of connect that. What do you feel like could be some key strategies for coaches to use and build a safe, supportive environment in their coaching practice? Because I feel like essentially you're doing the same thing with your girls and giving them
yeah.
empowering pieces of text and things that they can actually apply and take with their lives. What are some ways that coaches can also do that?
Absolutely. I know I alluded to this earlier about doing things that are more hands on, but I think that especially when we're coaching people from a lot of different disciplines, giving people an opportunity to talk about their particular discipline and making sure we have things for their particular discipline. I recently did an AI training where I came up with a bunch of not so great prompts for AI, but from a lot of different disciplines, and then gave the participants sticky notes and said, okay, go around and tell me how you would make this prompt better and more applicable to your classroom. And it was great to see a wide variety of people doing different things and prompting in different ways to make it work for their classrooms. And I think that the way we can be more inclusive is making sure that we're trying to give them an opportunity to demonstrate how they could take whatever we're doing and then apply it to their own classroom and then share that out. I think especially when you're working with teachers, you're working with experts, and they should have opportunities within that training to demonstrate their expertise because they have worked hard on this. Even the first year teachers, they have studied this. And honestly, some of the younger teachers are far more tech savvy these days. But it also it honors what the teachers do to be able to share their expertise. So whether that is walking around and sharing with sticky notes, or even making sure you're pairing people up in ways where people have an opportunity to share their story and to share what they're doing. I think that is a great way to honor what people are doing in their classrooms and to make them feel included in what you're doing with technology, because people want to tell their stories. Human beings, we are naturally creative and we are natural storytellers. So the more we can give those opportunities, the better we're going to be.
We're going to take a quick break with Maureen, and we'll be back in a moment.
Looking for a program that reaches all teachers in learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges.
All right, welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. We have been diving into some great conversation, and we're going to jump back in.
Okay, I think we're gonna jump into top 3 tips.
I feel refined and refreshed and ready to start my Latin courses. So
Me too.
I feel like this is a perfect, like that last segment was just perfect. So I think we can proceed.
Yeah,
with our-
Maureen, if you ever put those classes online, I'd love to hear about some, female ancient badasses
Yeah.
and learn a little something. So I think that sounds so awesome.
I
So
need that.
we end every episode on top 3 tips. And so you have so much experience and so many good things. I think I would say, what are your top 3 tips around supporting teachers with something that feels really scary and unknown and maybe even irrelevant, just like sometimes with your students that the ancient world may feel to them today?
Absolutely. That's such a good question. I would say the first is always be patient. Be patient with the person you're working with. Try to understand where they're coming from, whether that's asking them questions or just letting them talk about why they might feel a certain way. But also be patient with yourself. You do not have all the answers, or at least I can talk from an I perspective. I do not have all the answers. I think it's really important to realize that if you can have some patience and give yourself grace and also be patient with whoever you're working with and realizing they could be coming from a totally different place. And again, they could be coming from a place of fear. Just trying to ask questions and figure out where they're coming from is really important. My second big tip is be flexible. Flexibility is so important. We as coaches develop a lot of different tools in our toolbox. And so be willing to pivot, be willing to turn at a dime and figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. And don't try to push something that's not working. Because if you're pushing and you can see the person's not responding, try something else. Give yourself that opportunity to try something new and see if that works better. And I would say the third is small steps. Small incremental change is far more effective than trying to change everything, because I think when you try to change everything all at once, that opens up the door for fear. That opens up the door for people to feel inadequate, for people to feel like this is too much or overwhelming. And so I think as much as possible, taking those small steps towards a big change is what can be powerful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
Tips. Thank you for
Thank you for
the beautiful energy you have. I don't know what it is, but like you just have an immaculate energy. Like I didn't come to work with coffee, but I feel like I had a cup of Maureen and I'm ready to tackle on life and tackle on Latin. So thank
Maureen, I love that.
a cup of Maureen. I need that. I'll have to talk to her every day. Your light and your passion for education just shines through, even virtually. So we just appreciate you being on the podcast. We're so excited that we had a chance to chat with you today.
Maureen, is there anything, any socials or contact info or anything coming up that you'd want to share before we wrap up here?
Not sure about coming up, but I am Latin Tech Tools on all on the different social medias. I picked that name way before my students told me it was very uncool to be a tool, but I'm Latin Tech Tools. I've had it since 2010. I am revamping my website, so hopefully I'll be launching that in September. That will have a lot of different tools, tips, strategies, things like that for language teachers, but just technology in general.
What's the address for that?
Follow my socials and I will send that along.
There we go.
I
Okay.
don't have it yet. I'm working on it.
You got like a Taylor Swift drop it one piece at a time thing going on
Yeah,
here.
she's like,
So that's kind of what's
soon.
going on.
Love it.
Yeah. And I'm doing some presentations coming up, but honestly, like follow me on socials and I'm happy to share a bunch of tips, because I think right as the school year starting, that's when teachers are like, okay, we need these things. And so I like to post either short videos or little tips here and there to help teachers as the year begins. And hopefully I will continue throughout the year with that.
Love that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all so much for watching the Restart Recharge podcast. We will see you on the next episode.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with an educator friend.
And connect with us on social media at RRCoachCast to let us know what you thought of the episode and what topics you want us to discuss next.
New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.